Hello, back again. Oh, glad to see you. This particular this story I want to relate to you also happened on that. I was working on those buildings on South Drexel Boulevard in Chicago. This time I had up to this time I was driving a 1967 Chevy Caprice, and one day I got inspired to take my car and to trade it in for a pickup truck. And I bought a 1970 Chevy half-ton pickup truck. And this was, back in Chicago, they had, in Illinois and in Chicago at the same time, at that particular time, they had regulations of what a driver of a pickup truck how he could drive a car, and how he could drive a truck, and where he could drive the truck, and certain regulations of what had to be on the truck. And I had just bought this truck the night before, was really pumped about driving my truck to work this one day. And so, as I drove the truck to work, I was asked by one of the supervisors, my dad was the job for the superintendent, but one of the supervisors, to take some material from one job site back to another job site because I had a truck. And of course, anybody's got a truck, you always gain a lot of friends, or there's always a lot of uses for people who have trucks around. So, of course, I had this brand new truck. I just bought it the night before, and I was driving this material from one job site to the other. And I didn't realize until, in Chicago, you can't drive a truck on a boulevard. When you have a truck, you have to have your name and a gross weight printed on the side of the truck. Got to have flares. You've got to have, if you have no license plates on the truck, you better have a sales certificate. I forgot all this stuff because I'm so used to driving a car in these streets around Chicago that I didn't realize for a second I was driving a truck. And so what I did when I drove this one job site, I made a turn, realizing I was going the wrong way on a one-way boulevard, Avenue Boulevard, where you can't have a truck on a boulevard. And I got immediately there was a Chicago policeman sitting there, and the car pulled me right over. I hadn't traveled 300 feet on this road before I realized at the same time what I had done was I was going the wrong way to one way. That this Chicago Highway Patrol officer saw me do it at the same time. And he pulls me over at the same time, and he's kind of an old, crotchety guy, looked like about, just should have been retired already, kind of overweight, and I think I was going to make his quota for the day. When he stopped me, I got a ticket for not having my name on the side of the truck, didn't have a sales certificate, didn't have flares in the car, didn't have, the blinkers didn't work or something. But anyway, when this whole thing was said and done, for the sake of this video, when all said and done, I got 8 traffic tickets from this one stop. And I thought to myself, I probably, if I just pay these fines, which would have amounted to probably $300 or $400 at the time, which would be over a week's pay to pay these fines, I said, I'm just going to go to court and fight this stuff. I'm just going to, this is not like one ticket, no big deal. I got 8 tickets, so I ended up going to court. Long story short, fast forward, I go to court. I go into the courtroom, and my name gets, and this courtroom is like back in late 1960s Chicago. Everybody and their brother was in this particular courtroom for this particular day, and I get called up to the stand, and I'm going to testify about my issue with this traffic issue. And this, for the sake of the video, to keep this short and concise, I'm going to testify on my behalf. I'm put up on the stand. And the clerk of the court comes up there and says, you're going to raise your right hand and swear after me. Raise my right hand. I'm not going to raise a fist because I'm not in defiance. I got to raise my right hand. And again, I'm not thinking about this. I am just not thinking about what my hand looks like from the backside. And somebody starts laughing in the courtroom before the clerk even finishes swearing me in. And the clerk stops and looks around, and the judge looking over me and says, I put my hand down. I didn't realize exactly what all was going on at the same time. And the judge, I look over at the judge, and the judge is staring at me, just staring me down. He says to me, son, you got an attitude about this court? And I said, excuse me? Of course, at this particular second, it hadn't dawned on me what was happening. I hadn't because I don't think like this. It hadn't dawned on me. And he said, you think you can do this in my court and get away with this? And I said, excuse me? And he said, you want to spend a couple of days downstairs in that cell and thinking about what you're doing? I'm going to cite you for contempt. He's putting his hand up like this at me. He said, yeah, I can cite you for contempt. I can do that. I said, excuse me, for what? And this went on one more cycle. He was really getting blistering, and it now kind of dawned on me because of what he was doing in his gesturing. It kind of dawned on me what had happened in the court. And it's an interesting experience to me when I have this issue with people, and they're getting really tense about what they think they saw. And when I hold my hands up like this, you cannot see the difference in my hands. This hand is an intentional gesture. But then again, when I turn my hands around, and I turn my hand around in court with the judge, and after raising my hand and turn my hand around, I said, I'm being cited again because I had learned this earlier. I'm being cited because of misunderstanding of my hand. It's the blank look that comes over people's faces that they don't know how to respond to this. I have seen this hundreds and hundreds of times. The judge looked at me and he called the clerk of the court and says, how do you plead? He says, the clerk of the court says, no, the judge says, no contest. He says, dismissed. And I got up out of the court. I don't even know what happened. As I'm walking out of the court, I tried to keep from laughing. I got these growths inside of my mouth. You can't see them. Because I had been through this so many times in the past that I got to bite myself to keep from laughing as I'm walking out of the court. I got these little things like this to keep from laughing. And like I say, this is all in relation to what's been an awkward experience in my life, and having to deal with people's misunderstanding of my hand. And that's probably 3 times in my life now that I had to deal with a judge in a traffic court misunderstanding my hand and being sworn in. But after having done this and having dealt with this for some 50-some years of my life, I've gotten pretty good at managing damage control with this.